The observation deck aboard the Droo flagship Eternal Victory buzzed with anticipation. High Commander Tal adjusted his ceremonial armor, the gold and silver plates catching the light of the distant stars. He stood tall, his blue skin stretched tight over his muscular frame, watching as his officers prepared for their first meeting with humans. "Their ship approaches, Commander," announced First Officer Mev, his voice calm despite the historic moment. Tal nodded. The Droo Empire had spread across 3 galactic sectors over 7 centuries. They had conquered 18 species and absorbed 32 more through diplomatic means. This new species would likely follow the same path. Science Director Rave moved to stand beside Tal. Her slender form was draped in the formal scientific robes of the Droo Elite Academy. "They call themselves humans," she explained, her voice tinged with dismissal. "Technologically primitive by our standards, but they've managed basic interstellar travel. Their home world is called Earth." "Primitive but spacefaring," mused Tal. "Always an interesting combination." The human vessel entered the docking bay. Compared to the gleaming silver curves of Droo ships, the human craft looked almost crude. Its lines were angular, its hull marked with practical rather than aesthetic considerations. "Ugly little thing," muttered Mev. "Functional," corrected Rave. "They prioritize efficiency over beauty." 5 humans emerged from their ship. Tal was surprised by how similar they looked to the Droo, apart from their pink-brown skin and lack of the characteristic Droo head ridges. They walked upright, had 2 arms, 2 legs, and faces that displayed readable emotions. The human delegation was led by a composed woman named Joo Kim. She wore simple but elegant clothes in deep blue. Her dark hair was pulled back, revealing an intelligent face with eyes that missed nothing. "High Commander Tal," she said in perfect Droo language, bowing slightly. "Earth thanks you for this opportunity to establish peaceful relations between our peoples." Tal inclined his head. "The Droo Empire welcomes Earth to the galactic community." The initial pleasantries went smoothly. The humans presented gifts, samples of Earth art, music, and scientific texts. The Droo reciprocated with minor technological devices and star charts of the local sector. It was during the 3rd day of meetings that the tone shifted. The humans had requested information about Droo energy production methods. Tal had authorized the sharing of basic details, seeing no harm. Engineer Tahyun Park, a quiet human with steady hands and thoughtful eyes, presented detailed models on a holographic display. "Your stellar tapping technology concerns us," Tahyun said, pointing to various sections of the model. "We've observed the aftermath in several systems along your expansion path. The stars show signs of premature decay." The Droo delegation exchanged glances. These observations were accurate, but considered a minor side effect of their energy extraction process. "You've been studying our abandoned systems?" asked Rave, her voice sharp with sudden interest. "We explore," said Juwoo simply. "We found patterns that troubled our scientists." Taehyun continued. "The energy extraction creates microfractures in the star's core. Over time, these fractures expand, leading to accelerated fusion and eventual premature nova events." High Commander Tal barely contained his amusement. "Your species has barely left its solar cradle, yet you presume to lecture an empire that has harnessed the power of 1,000 suns." The room grew quiet. The human delegation showed no sign of intimidation. Ambassador Juwoo remained calm. "We don't presume to lecture, Commander. We offer a warning as fellow travelers in this galaxy. What you're doing isn't sustainable. We've run simulations based on the data collected. Within 500 years, the cascade effect will begin." "Cascade effect?" asked Rave. "The premature nova events will trigger chain reactions in nearby star systems," explained Taehyun. "Your empire is creating the seeds of its own destruction." The Droo delegation laughed openly. Tal waved his hand dismissively. "We have heard similar concerns from many species," he said. "Our technology has served us for centuries. Your primitive understanding leads you to unnecessary fears. We understand more than you think, said another human, Jin Wuxiu, their chief scientist. Your method of tapping stellar cores creates specific subspace distortions. We detected these distortions before we even met you. This statement silenced the Droo momentarily. Subspace detection at that level should be beyond human capability. Perhaps you could share your detection methods, suggested Rave, her scientific curiosity overriding protocol. Perhaps, said Juwu, after you've considered our warning. The meeting ended shortly after. As the humans departed to return to their ship, Science Director Rave approached Tael privately. Their concerns align with some minority reports from our own scientific community, she admitted quietly, and their detection capabilities are surprisingly advanced. You find them concerning? Asked Tael. Curious, corrected Rave. That such a primitive species could detect the stellar degradation patterns we ourselves barely monitor. Perhaps we should study them more closely. Tael considered this. The humans were clearly more capable than their technology suggested. Such species often developed in unusual directions, sometimes becoming either valuable allies or troublesome opponents. Establish the standard trade agreements, he decided, and begin surveillance immediately. I want to know everything about these humans, their capabilities, their weaknesses, their true potential. Rave nodded and departed. Tael remained on the observation deck, watching the small human ship prepare to leave. Something about these humans troubled him. Not their warning. He had dismissed that, but their quiet confidence. They didn't fear the Droo Empire as they should. He would need to remedy that in time. 20 years passed since the first meeting between humans and the Droo Empire. The mighty Droo continued their expansion across the stars, adding new worlds to their territory. They built a small base on Mars in Earth's solar system, mainly to watch the humans and trade for Earth's unique resources. For most Droo citizens, humans were just another minor species, barely worth remembering except as an occasional curiosity. The warnings from those first human representatives had been filed away and forgotten by all but a few. Administrator Lowen sat in his office on New Droo, a recently established colony world near the Empire's outer edge. His blue skin had paled with stress, and the ridges on his head had darkened, a sign of poor health among his kind. He tapped his long fingers nervously on his desk as he reviewed the latest reports. This can't be happening, he muttered. Across from him, Security Chief Val stood rigidly at attention. Unlike Lowen's administrative gray uniform, Val wore the black and silver of the Imperial Security Force. His expression remained neutral, but concern showed in his eyes. 3 more energy collectors have gone offline, Lowen said, looking up from the screens floating above his desk. That makes 17 this cycle alone. The Imperial Energy Ministry is demanding answers I don't have. Val hesitated before speaking. The humans predicted this. A lucky guess, Lowen dismissed with a wave of his hand. He had heard of the old human warnings, but like most Droo, he considered them irrelevant. Our stellar tapping technology has worked perfectly for centuries. Has it? Val asked quietly. Or have we simply abandoned systems before the problems became obvious? Lowen frowned. Val had always been too interested in human culture and ideas. It made him a good security chief, understanding potential threats, but sometimes his perspective seemed almost undroo. The Human Collective for Stellar Preservation has published a new study, Val continued. He placed a small crystal on Lowen's desk. The data device glowed with a soft blue light. They've precisely modeled the cascade failure we're experiencing. They even predicted which systems would fail next. Lowen's expression darkened as he plugged the crystal into his system. The holographic display showed star systems across Droo space. Red markers indicated failed energy collectors. Yellow markers showed predicted failures. Impossible, he whispered. How could they know? This information includes collectors that failed yesterday. Their prediction model is accurate to within 98.7%, Val said. and they predict that within 5 years, the failures will reach critical systems near the Droo homeworld. Lowen stood suddenly. We need to contact the Imperial Council immediately. 3 days later, the highest Droo authorities gathered in emergency session. High Counselor Jeff, who had replaced Tyle after his retirement, listened to reports with growing alarm. If these failures continue, we face empire-wide energy shortages within 2 years, warned the Energy Minister. And you're certain the humans predicted this? Asked Jeff. Not just predicted. They warned us 20 years ago, said Science Director Crave, daughter of the now-deceased Rave. My mother's private notes show she had begun to take their warnings seriously before her death. The military representative, General Moore, slammed his fist on the table. Then the humans must be causing this. They've found a way to sabotage our technology. There's no evidence of that, Crave objected. All signs point to exactly what they warned us about, an inherent flaw in our energy extraction method. Either way, said High Counselor Jeff, we must act decisively. Within days, the Droo Imperial Council imposed harsh sanctions on Earth, restricting all technological exchange. Trade ships were recalled. Droo citizens living on Earth were ordered to return home immediately. A military fleet led by Commander Sen was dispatched to Earth. 10 massive warships entered Earth's solar system, bypassing the outer defense systems with ease. Commander Sen, tall even for a Droo, and wearing battle armor that emphasized his imposing figure, led a delegation to Earth's unified government headquarters in Geneva. His soldiers flanked him, weapons visible but not aimed. They were met by Min-Siu Lee, Earth's chief ambassador. She was calm despite the military show of force. 20 years had passed since the first contact, and gray streaked her dark hair now, but her eyes remained sharp and clear. Ambassador Lee, Sen began formally. The Droo Empire demands access to all human research facilities and data related to stellar energy extraction. We have reason to believe humans are interfering with Droo Imperial infrastructure. Min-Siu smiled slightly. We are not interfering, Commander Sen. We simply understand the physics better than you do. Then you will share that understanding, Sen demanded. We warned you 20 years ago, she said simply. Now we give you one final warning. As she spoke, every Droo communication device throughout Earth's solar system, from the smallest personal units to the largest ship systems, displayed the same image, a countdown timer showing 30 days. Sen's eyes widened in shock. Such a takeover of Droo systems should be impossible. What happens when it reaches 0? Demanded Commander Sen, fighting to keep his voice steady. Ambassador Min-Siu only smiled. You'll find out. Is this a declaration of war? Sen asked. No, Min-Siu replied. It's an invitation to survive what's coming. The cascade has begun, Commander. Even if you destroyed Earth today, it wouldn't stop what's happening to your Empire's stars. Commander Sen left the meeting shaken. As his shuttle returned to his flagship, he watched Earth through the viewport, the blue jewel against the blackness of space. The humans had not built massive defenses. They had not created a great fleet of warships. Yet somehow, they seemed completely unafraid of the Droo Empire. For the first time in his military career, Sen felt true uncertainty about what would happen next. The countdown reached 0 at exactly midnight, Universal Earth time. Commander Sen stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Imperial Dawn *, watching the main view screen. For 30 days, the Droo fleet had maintained its position around Earth. For 30 days, humans had continued their normal activities while refusing all Droo demands. Countdown complete, Commander, reported his first officer. Status of Earth? Sen asked, his voice tense. Unchanged. Normal power signatures. Normal communication traffic. Wait. The officer paused, adjusting his instruments. Commander, something is happening. On the view screen, they watched as city lights across Earth's night side began to shut down. Not in a chaotic pattern of failure, but in perfect sequence, like someone turning off lights room by room in a house. Seoul went dark. then Tokyo, then Beijing. The darkness spread westward, following Earth's rotation. "What are they doing?" whispered Sen. Observation teams on Earth reported strange behavior. Humans everywhere were calmly walking into their homes or gathering in public buildings. There was no panic, no chaos, just quiet, orderly movement. "Like they planned this," said Communications Officer Lev. Within 12 hours, all Earth cities had gone dark. Their power grids were offline, but in a controlled shutdown, not a collapse. "Send in scout teams," ordered Sen. "I want to know what's happening down." Commander Sen led the first major investigation team himself. They landed in Seoul, a city that had housed 10 million humans just days before. The streets were silent except for the wind. Sen and his team moved through the empty city, weapons ready, sensors scanning. "Life signs?" he asked. "None, Commander," replied Science Officer Kren. "Not even pets or zoo animals. All vertebrate life forms are gone." They entered a residential building. The doors were unlocked. Inside apartments, they found normal homes suddenly abandoned. In one, a child's bedroom contained toys scattered across the floor, a game paused on a screen. In the kitchen, food remained in cooking pots, still warm. "Impossible," muttered Science Officer Kren, scanning the rooms again with her instruments. 11 billion beings don't simply disappear. Where did they go? How did they go? Our ships monitored the entire planet. No mass evacuation occurred. The investigation expanded to the Moon colony, Mars settlements, and the asteroid mining stations. All human outposts were empty. 11 billion humans had vanished within 48 hours. Every Earth communication system now displayed the same message on constant repeat. "We warned you. Prepare." Commander Sen returned to his ship, deeply troubled. Could they have developed some form of mass teleportation technology? "No known physics allows for that," said Science Officer Kren. "And where would they teleport to? We've scanned every planet in this system." That evening, as Sen reviewed the investigation reports, an urgent communication arrived from the Droo homeworld. The message was broken, filled with static. Critical systems failing. Power grids collapsed in Western Hemisphere. Communication networks dissolving. Need immediate. The transmission cut off. "Get them back," Sen ordered. "I can't, Commander," said Communications Officer Lev. "Something is interfering with all subspace communications. We're getting similar reports from across Droo space." Sen stood, his face pale. Could the humans have done this? Science Officer Kren looked up from her instruments. "Commander, I found something. I was searching historical databases for any similar events." She displayed ancient text on the main screen. "These are old Droo religious texts. They reference the vanished ones who walked between worlds. I always assumed it was mythology, but..." Her words were cut short by a communication alert. Every screen on the bridge suddenly displayed the same image. A human face. It was Chunho Kim, Earth's former science director. "Commander Sen," he said, his voice clear and calm. "The Droo Empire has one standard week to surrender." Sen stared at the screen in disbelief. "Surrender? To whom? You've disappeared." Junho smiled slightly. "We haven't disappeared, Commander. We've simply stepped sideways." "What does that mean? Where are you?" demanded Sen. "We're exactly where we've always been. We've simply shifted our phase relationship with normal spacetime." Kren gasped. "Dimensional displacement. That's theoretical." "No longer theoretical," replied Chunho. "We exist now in what you might call parallel space. We can observe your dimension, interact with it when necessary, but remain separate from it." "Why?" asked Sen. "Why do this?" "Because you left us no choice. Your empire wouldn't listen to reason, so we removed ourselves from harm's way while we addressed the problem." "What problem?" "Your energy technology is creating fractures in spacetime. The failures you're experiencing now are just the beginning. Left unchecked, the cascade will eventually destroy not just your empire, but potentially this entire galactic sector. Sen's mind raced. The system failures on our homeworld are our doing, yes, confirmed Juno. We're systematically dismantling your harmful technology. We've been preparing for this for 20 years. This is an act of war, Sen growled. No, Commander. This is an intervention. We gave you 30 days to consider your options. Now you have 1 week to formally surrender. After that, we cannot guarantee the survival of your species. The transmission ended, leaving the bridge in stunned silence. Can they really do what they claim? Sen asked Kren quietly. She nodded slowly. If they've mastered dimensional physics to this degree, they could indeed be all around us, unseen. And they could certainly disable our technology. Sen looked out at Earth, peaceful and blue below them. It seemed impossible that a species they had dismissed as primitive had achieved such power. Contact Imperial Command, he ordered. Tell them we may need to consider the humans' terms. 6 months after humanity's disappearance, the once mighty Droo Empire lay in ruins. The grand cities on the homeworld, once glowing with endless energy from 1,000 tapped stars, now sat in darkness for most of each day. Power rationing had become normal. Food shortages affected even the elite. Chancellor Mael stood at the window of the Imperial Palace, looking out at the capital city. Only half the buildings showed lights, despite the evening hour. In the distance, he could see the long lines of people waiting for basic supplies. Behind him, the Emergency Council waited in silence. Once, this chamber had held the confident leaders of the greatest empire the galaxy had ever known. Now, the 12 council members looked tired and afraid. Mael turned to face them. His ceremonial robes hung loose on his frame. Like most Droo, he had lost weight in recent months. The situation grows worse each day, he said simply. Half our colony worlds are unreachable. Our energy network has collapsed. We have no choice but to accept whatever terms the humans offer. General Vosh, the military representative, slammed his fist on the table. Never. We should fight to the last Droo. Fight what? Asked Science Minister Laura. An enemy we cannot see or touch. They disabled our weapons systems within days of their disappearance. Elder Scientist Tave, bent with age and leaning on a cane, raised his hand. He was one of the few still alive who had met the first human delegation 20 years earlier. I've completed my analysis of the human disappearance, he said, his voice thin but clear. They didn't flee or die. They shifted. Shifted, repeated Mael. Tave nodded. Into dimensional adjacent space. They've been here all along, watching us, dismantling our empire piece by piece. He touched a control, and a holographic model appeared above the council table. It showed 2 overlapping spheres, slightly out of alignment. Our universe and a parallel dimension, separated by a phase difference, explained Tave. The humans found a way to move themselves and their technology into this adjacent space. From there, they can observe us and even affect our world, but we cannot touch them. How is this possible? Demanded Mael. They were a primitive species. We assumed they were primitive because their visible technology was less advanced than ours, said Tave, but they were developing along different lines. While we focused on expanding outward, they explored the nature of reality itself. A communication alert sounded. Every screen in the council chamber activated at once, despite security protocols that should have prevented such access. A hologram appeared in the center of the chamber. Ambassador Ji-Yun Park, looking exactly as she had 20 years ago when meeting with the Droo. Chancellor Mael, she said with a slight bow. The time for decision has come. How dare you? Growled General Vosh. Your attack on our empire. Ji-Yun held up her hand and somehow Vosh fell silent. We did not attack you. We protected ourselves while preventing you from causing greater damage to the fabric of space-time. What do you want? Asked Mael wearily. The Droo Council will meet our representatives at the following coordinates, she stated, as a star chart appeared beside her image. Come unarmed. You have 3 days. The hologram vanished. The meeting location was a barren moon orbiting a gas giant in a neutral star system. The Droo delegation, Chancellor Mail, Elder Scientist Tave, and 5 other council members arrived in their last functioning diplomatic vessel. They found a small structure waiting on the moon's surface. Inside, oxygen and gravity generators created a comfortable environment. And there, standing around a simple table, were 7 humans, visible, tangible, real. How? Demanded Chancellor Mail, looking at the humans in disbelief. How are you here? Scientist Doyen Choi stepped forward. He wore a simple gray uniform with no markings or decoration. We can shift between phases at will, he explained. We developed technology to exist slightly out of phase with normal spacetime. We didn't disappear out of fear. We disappeared to minimize casualties while we neutralized the threat your empire posed to galactic stability. You've destroyed us, hissed Mail, his voice tight with anger. Billions suffer because of your actions. No, corrected Joyen Park, who stood at the head of the table. We've saved you from yourselves. Your energy technology was creating microfractures in spacetime. Left unchecked, it would have eventually destroyed not just your empire, but potentially this entire galactic sector. She gestured to a holographic display that appeared above the table. It showed a simulation of spacetime, with tiny cracks spreading outward from points that Mail recognized as Droo energy collection stations. We tried to warn you, continued Jayan. 20 years ago, we showed your leaders evidence of the damage. You ignored us. 10 years ago, we published detailed studies predicting exactly what would happen. You dismissed them. So you destroyed our empire as punishment. Asked Counselor Siri, her voice bitter. We disabled your harmful technology, corrected Doyan. We did not target food production, medical facilities, or basic infrastructure. Any suffering your people experience now is the result of your empire's complete dependence on an unsustainable energy source. Elder Scientist Tave stepped forward, his eyes fixed on the simulation still playing above the table. They're right, he said quietly. I've been studying the same patterns for years. The evidence was always there, but we ignored it because acknowledging it would have meant changing everything about how our empire functions. Chancellor Mail looked around the room, at the humans standing calmly before him and his fellow Droo who seemed suddenly old and defeated. What are your terms? He asked finally. Jayan nodded to another human, who stepped forward with a data crystal. Complete dismantling of all stellar tapping technology. Transition to sustainable energy sources, which we will help you develop. Reparations to species harmed by your expansion. And a new government structure with human oversight for at least 50 years. Mail took the crystal, his hand trembling slightly. And if we refuse? There is no refusal, said Jayen simply. This is not a negotiation. This is the only path forward that ensures the survival of your species and the safety of this galactic sector. Mail looked at his fellow council members. One by one, they nodded. Then it seems, he said slowly, that the Droo Empire has reached its end. The terms of surrender were simple but firm. The Droo would completely dismantle their stellar extraction technology. They would establish a new government under human supervision. And they would pay reparations to the dozen species they had displaced during their centuries of expansion. Emperor Sale, the last ruler of the old empire, stood before the cameras on the final day of his reign. His once proud head ridges had faded to a pale blue, showing his age and stress. For the good of our people and the galaxy, he said, I step down today. Many Droo watched with tears in their eyes. Some felt anger, others relief. The streets remained peaceful as the Reform Council took power, led by former Science Director Rave, daughter of the scientist who had first noted the humans' unusual capabilities. Rave was young for such responsibility, but she understood both the old ways and the need for change. She worked closely with the human advisors, who appeared as holograms during this transition period. The first year was the hardest. Energy rationing continued as the Droo dismantled their harmful technology. Some colony worlds declared independence, refusing to accept the surrender terms. Small rebellions broke out on frontier planets. Through it all, the humans remained invisible to normal sight, shifted into their parallel dimension. They monitored and guided, but allowed the Droo to handle their own problems whenever possible. Then, one morning in the capital city, a human appeared on the street. He was a scientist named Jinho Kang, walking calmly to the new Science Ministry building. People stopped and stared. Some took pictures. By afternoon, the news had spread across the planet. The humans were returning. Not all at once, but gradually. Scientists first, then diplomats, then ordinary citizens. They appeared in small numbers, always with clear purposes. They helped rebuild power systems using safe technology. They treated the Droo with respect, not as conquered enemies. Hyunmoo Park, appointed as Earth's representative to the new Galactic Council, explained their approach during a public address. We remain partially shifted, maintaining our technological advantage until we're certain the Droo reforms are genuine. Most humans will remain in phase-shifted space for now, but we want to begin working directly with you as partners. Slowly, life improved for the Droo people. The new energy systems, while less powerful than the stellar extractors, proved reliable and safe. Food production returned to normal. Trade routes reopened. On the Droo homeworld, children sat in classrooms learning a new history, how their empire's hubris nearly led to catastrophe, and how the humans they had dismissed as primitive had saved them from destruction. The Droo Empire thought it could take whatever it wanted from the stars, explained teacher Myla to her young students. We didn't understand that the universe has rules that cannot be broken, even by the most powerful empires. Were the humans always stronger than us? Asked a small blue child. Not stronger, said Myla. Wiser. They chose a different path. 5 years passed. The Emergency Council transitioned to an elected government. Rave, now Chancellor, worked to build a society based on cooperation rather than conquest. During the 5th anniversary of the surrender, now celebrated as Renewal Day, thousands gathered in the capital's Grand Plaza. Droo and humans stood together under the open sky. Chancellor Rave addressed the combined assembly. 5 years ago, our world ended, she began. Or so we thought. We had defined ourselves by our empire, by our power to take what we wanted from the stars. We thought ourselves masters of the galaxy, only to discover we were children playing with forces we didn't understand. She paused, looking across the crowd. The humans gave us a warning, which we ignored. Then they gave us a second chance, which we must not waste. Today, the last stellar extraction facility has been dismantled. We stand here not as a broken empire, but as a new society ready to join the galactic community as equals. The crowd applauded, Droo and humans together. Ambassador Sung-Ho Kim rose to speak after her. He was older than most human representatives, with gray hair and lines around his eyes that showed when he smiled. Today we officially welcome the Droo into the Protected Species Accord, he announced. You join 7 other developing civilizations we've been quietly guiding away from self-destruction. A murmur ran through the crowd. This was new information. The Droo had assumed they were the only species the humans had intervened with. The revelation may surprise you, continued Sung-Ho. Humans haven't just been watching the Droo. We've been guardians throughout the galaxy for over a century. When we developed phase shift technology, we discovered evidence of multiple civilizations heading toward technological disasters similar to what the Droo faced. He gestured, and a holographic display appeared above the plaza, showing star systems throughout the galaxy with small points of light indicating intelligent civilizations. Our choice to shift dimensions wasn't a technological quirk, Sung-Ho explained. It was a philosophical evolution. We recognized that true advancement means responsible stewardship, not domination. Some species listen to our warnings. Others require more direct intervention. The Droo required the most direct approach we've ever taken, but it was necessary to prevent a catastrophe that would have affected innocent species across this sector. As the assembly concluded and people began to disperse, Chancellor Rave approached Sungo privately. "There's one question you've never answered," she said quietly. "How did humans develop such advanced technology so quickly? When we first met your kind, you had barely left your solar system. Yet 20 years later, you had mastered dimensional physics in ways our scientists still don't fully understand." Sungho smiled. "That's simple. We were warned too, long ago." Rave's eyes widened. "By whom?" "We don't know their name. They left only messages, encoded in structures we found buried on Mars. Messages about stellar energy and dimensional barriers, about the dangers of taking too much from the stars. And unlike the Droo," Sungho finished gently, "we listened." Rave stood in silence, watching as the human ambassador walked away. Above them, the stars were beginning to appear in the evening sky, the same stars that had powered the Droo Empire and nearly destroyed it, the same stars that now lit a new path forward if they had the wisdom to follow it.